What's going on, everybody? John's Record Rack. My friend Corey here from Just Add Vinyl. How's it going, Corey? We are back with another episode, and I think it's only been a week. I think that's a record for us. We've been going like 3 or 4 months between episodes, but I think we got some momentum now. So real quick, just to kind of recap. So we've had a lot of good participation in the Vodcast from last week. Pete, you were right. People are super passionate. Kind of the comments were all over the board. But I think for the majority of the people who commented, they tended to agree with us as far as labeling things metal and not metal. So I think that was a really good topic. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. Not a lot of thoughts there.
Right. No, it's totally fine. So
I think we hashed it out pretty good. I mean, there was a lot there, and there's a lot of it subjective, but we had fun talking about it, hashing it out.
Yep. So, okay, folks. So for today's episode, we are going to focus on music documentaries. I know this is especially for a lot of the people in the VC and vinyl community. Music documentaries are always popular. I've seen people show both documentaries, both on record and also on Blu-ray or DVD. People have gone down and listed their favorites. So I think that's kind of what we're going to do. We're going to talk about music documentaries, our favorite documentaries, and then close to the end of this, towards the end, I thought Corey thought it would be a good idea if we kind of run down our top 25 or so, or top 10. Is that right, Corey?
Well, I was thinking top 25 for our next episode. Are you talking about for documentaries?
Yeah, or just listing some of our favorites.
I have a list here. I didn't number it.
I didn't either. I just typed them all down. So towards the end, we can kind of go through 25. That. You do have 25?
I have 25.
Wow, what are the chances of that?
That's weird because I really wasn't counting.
Come on, you were subconsciously counting. Yeah, I don't have 25. But okay, we can go through that at the end. So I'll turn over to you, Corey. Kind of what was your thought process in wanting to do documentaries, music documentaries?
I mean, as a music fan, music lover, if I'm not spinning records or hanging out with my family or at work, I'm probably digging through like Amazon Prime or Netflix, or I'm scrubbing on the internet looking for new music documentaries. It's something both my wife and I can enjoy watching, and it's just another way to learn and soak up more as a fan, whether it's, any other documentaries, that are out there. So I don't know, they come in spurts. I don't know. Beatles did a documentary back in the '60s, So
yeah.
That one's actually not on my list. What is that? Hard Day's Night. But you're talking about. Just fans want more, and documentaries, when they're well done, can really be enjoyable. The list that I put together may be a documentary, but it also has a live feed in it, or cuts back and forth between live show and the documentary. But documentaries are pretty awesome. The one documentary that got started many years ago, I think it was 1988 or 89, but was U2's Rattle and Hum.
That's actually a really good one.
It may have been 87. So I was just a kid. I would travel with my dad, and when we would travel, we'd stay at a hotel, and they'd have like a Showtime or whatever the movie channel was. And I remember when that was looping, I was just like, what is this? I knew the 2 or 3 U2 songs that were out there. I don't think I had Joshua Tree. I don't think I was listening to that quite a lot yet, but I was aware of it. But just blew me away. The whole black and white, it was cinematic. Got to see behind the scenes and got to see like B.B. King, and he was singing with the church choir in Harlem. And it had like towards the end, it had like extra tracks and little snippets, and then you got to see them going through the heartland. It had a major impact on me. And since then, I've always been a music documentary fan, and always trying to watch them.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. And then you mentioned, it's funny, you mentioned that music fans, we see documentaries and we always want to know more. I always feel that, and not all the time, but most of the documentaries I've watched, especially over the last 10 or 15 years, I feel like they do a good job of kind of touching the surface, right? But there's always something I want to know more about. And I felt that way about like Sam Dunn, who did the, Metal Headbanger's Journey. And then of course that documentary series, Metal Evolution. I felt like he did a good job touching the surface, but he missed so many vital key artists, or only spent, a quick couple minutes talking about them and then moved on, where I felt like he really could have dug deeper into the different genres that he made episodes for. I understand it was a TV show for VH1 Classic, so he's only got limited time. I get that, but I was actually always hoping that he would expand upon that and, release some independent stuff from, just from Banger Films, not necessarily, a TV show per se. So yeah, I always feel like there's more, right? There's always more that you want to know. And so that's what you're constantly digging around, looking for, more documentaries of particular artists, just so you don't miss anything. But yeah, the first documentary that I remember seeing was the Woodstock, the original Woodstock documentary. From my parents, of course, were tried and true hippies. My dad was actually at Woodstock for the actual festival. So that was, I remember watching that at least a couple times a year growing up. And it's okay now looking back on it, but I just always remember then just wanting to watch it over and over and over again, right? Because it was so informative. And that's kind of what I guess you could say kind of gave me the taste for music documentaries as I got older. And another thing too is I don't even have to be a huge fan of said music or the genre of music, whether it's hip hop or country or something that I'm just not really a big fan of. I'll still watch it because I find that just fascinating, right? To learn about some of that stuff, even though I don't like it, I'll watch it, no question.
I absolutely agree. That's a great point. I wish I brought that up. I'll definitely tune into some documentaries, even if it's not in my wheelhouse or if it's an artist I'm not as sure about or if it's outside my genre. Absolutely. We mentioned again wanting to know more. I've always felt that heavy metal in general has not really been given its due as far as comprehensive documentaries. It's just really hard to find stuff, and some of the stuff that you see that's out there is, it's either poorly done, kind of camcorder looking documentaries, some guy interviewing, a couple of people that he knows. There's a lot of those documentaries out there, even on Netflix, and even some I've purchased like from the iTunes store where it was just pretty basic. Thinking of what was the thrash documentary? It came out in like the mid 2000s. Was it Get Thrashed? Oh, I did not like that. That was really bad.
Yeah. There's tons of documentaries just like that, and I felt like that could have been better, right? A lot better, because they had so many different artists and bands that were interviewed for that, just tons. But it was just amateur in my mind.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of fluff out there. So if you are looking at Amazon and Netflix, there's a lot of really poorly done documentaries. And I'll say another one that I watch, but I wish I didn't have to watch it, would be on Access TV.
Oh yeah, Access. Yeah.
Autopsies.
Yep.
So we're kind of going into like what documentaries we don't like, and I think that's fine. So like on Access TV, this is like almost like tabloid. This is almost like tabloid stuff. You have Dr. James Hunter, and this guy looks like a doctor, and he's just because he has a pair of scrubs on. And then they go into this autopsy of the celebrity that has passed away, but then they build in this documentary by shortcutting all these things, and most of the time the estate is not even behind it. But I can't watch it because I want more. And actually, those aren't horrible, but I feel a little guilty because they're like tabloid. But man, if you look on, there's some really bad ones on Pink Floyd and there was a Van Halen one done recently. It was really bad. And I love Van Halen, and I was wanting it to be so good. It was terrible.
Yeah, that Van Halen one was awful.
Unsatisfying documentaries out there.
Yeah, I totally agree. That Van Halen one was indeed absolutely terrible. I mean, they didn't even have the band's music in the documentary. It was like generic hard rock tracks in the background. You know, it's just like, or in like still shots of them in playing live. It was, I thought that was one of the worst documentaries I've ever seen. And there's a couple of them like that.
I was telling my wife, honey, that song that's playing right now, I actually purchased that song with stock music, and I've used it in my videos.
Really?
Like, I recognize the generic music.
Wow.
It's available. Yeah, it's on the where you can purchase a subscription and download all you want.
Yeah, I feel like in today's age with technology and how easy it is to record some video, right, and do some, as long as you have like basic editing tools and skills, anyone can make a documentary about something and upload it, right?
So, hey, I want to bring it right back to you, right back to your point. You said like heavy metal, very overlooked when it comes to documentaries. I absolutely agree. And then this gives me a chance to plug our old video we did a long time. I say we, as in the vinyl community.
Yeah.
You and I haven't gotten together yet. But we did that, the VC members got together and we did Metal Obsession, collecting heavy metal records. And the whole thing behind that, it wasn't my idea. The whole thing behind that was, hey, it doesn't get a lot of love. And then so we did start back in the 70s with that and bring it up to now. But that was just a great opportunity to do, because we have some basic editing skills. Everybody gave me their video and we threw together a really cool documentary. And it's got thousands, like 16, 17,000 views. So, but I really would love to see somebody with a big budget and connections with the stars do it. But I want to give it back to you. But another one that came out, what did you think of Inside Metal, the rise of thrash metal part 1 and 2, and the LA metal scene? Did you check those?
Yeah, I did. I actually purchased those because they were super cheap on Amazon Prime. So I just downloaded them. I didn't like him. I don't like that guy, Bob Nalbanyan. I just think he's got, and it's not, I don't know him personally or, anything like that, but I just think his voice just bothers me. I felt those were like the Get Thrashed documentaries, right? It was just basically a bunch of interviews is all it really was. They didn't have any music.
Right. There was nothing to pull it all together, and they had some real cheesy effects on it.
Oh yeah.
But what I did like about it was, there's interviews with Gene Hoglan, and some Death Angel and some people that you don't see very often. But as we're talking, I realized there are two documentaries that should be on my list that's not. And I just thought the documentary on death was phenomenal.
Yeah, phenomenal.
What's the title of it? The whole title, do you remember? I don't remember.
It was Death by Metal.
Death by Metal. They did a great job with it. There's not a lot of footage, not a lot of pictures, but they were doing that whole thing where you could crop it out and zoom. And I've been experimenting with that, so I've been working on my own with that. But like pictures, they're making it real interesting with the materials that they do have. I thought that was really well executed documentary.
Not only that, is you really got to see kind of into the life of Chuck Schuldiner, right? Because I mean, obviously he is death, and you kind of saw it from when he was just getting started, of course, all the way through to when he eventually passed away, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm with you. I did not, after watching that, I did not feel like I had been cheated. I was like, this is great. I feel satisfied because I learned a lot of stuff that I didn't know, and I'm a huge Death fan. I love Death. And another one of the things I thought was kind of eye-opening was how crazy difficult Chuck was to work with. He was like a perfectionist, right? I mean, that would have kind of sucked to be a band member of his.
Yeah, you wish it wasn't so, but how many times do you see that in music? Whether
Oh
it's
yeah,
Roger Waters, Ginger Baker. I mean, there's people that are impossible to work with in the
Billy
business.
Corgan, right? All those guys. They're so anal about their music, and you know what? I'd probably be the same way if I was a famous musician. So it was just, excellent. That's an excellent choice. That's on your list, right? Or you didn't add
No,
it?
I just, as we're talking, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is not on my list. But I actually keep this list going through the years so I can reference it and I share it with people. So I keep a Word document going. So that documentary is so fresh, I hadn't added to the list, but I'll fix that as soon as we're done here with the video, that's for sure. The other one, I'll totally change gears. That's not on my list. It's a documentary called Mistaken for Strangers, and it's really good. It gets into the
Not familiar
band
with
The
that.
National
Oh, okay.
from Cincinnati.
Yep.
And you've got the lead singer is a sophisticated rock star now and on tour, European or worldwide tour. But his brother is not as successful in the music industry. He's kind of more of a regular everyday guy. So he gives him a camcorder and says, "Yeah, you can come on the tour and you can shoot this documentary." And let me tell you, it's a really awesome documentary. And The National is an excellent band. More the alternative indie side of it, but
Right.
it's a real enjoyable documentary. Now you have to watch it because just a few minutes ago, John, you said that you would watch videos.
Oh, absolutely.
Documentaries. But no, check that one out. I think watch that one with the wife too because it's one to watch with. It's not like Death where I had to watch that in the basement
with the doors locked.
But yeah, check that one out.
Yeah, I will. Of course, I've heard of The National, and I think I have their album, The Boxer. The only reason I have it is I was a part of that, Vinyl Me Please record club at the time. And that was one of the records of the month it was like a remaster reissue of The Boxer. So that's the only reason I have it. But I can honestly say I've only listened to it once. So I should definitely go back and revisit them. But yeah, absolutely. What was it called again?
Mistaken as Strangers or Mistaken for Strangers. The whole thing, oh, good. It gives me a chance to mention this. So in the beginning of the documentary, they are at Shake It Records in Cincinnati. And the owner and the owner's brother, they're co-owners. The owners are in the shop. They run the shop. They're there every day. And here you've got this famous, Cincinnati. They're more well known outside of Cincinnati than they are in their hometown.
Right. That's
and
kind
you've
of
got
funny.
him walking around the record shop, and the owners don't even recognize him.
Well, he's such an unassuming type dude. I mean, just from what I've seen of him or heard of him, he just seems like a regular guy, right?
Yeah.
He's to me, he seemed kind of soft spoken. I mean, I don't know. He doesn't have,
He doesn't have that rock star persona.
No, he doesn't have a memorable, like you said, persona or face. Yeah, totally. That's pretty funny. Walking around in your hometown's record store and nobody recognizes him. He probably
So,
loves
hey, I
it.
tell you what, before we lose track of time, can you run through your list?
Yeah.
And then we'll just talk about what stands out. That way anybody listening can like kind of chime in or, they're probably typing a comment right now, their favorite documentary.
Yeah, absolutely. So these are in no particular order. I just kind of jotted these down as I thought of them. And I'm not going to really give too much commentary on them just for, time, and maybe we can come back and pick a couple. So I'll just start and read down. And I'll list the year they came out. So the first one, of course, I already mentioned Woodstock. Of course, that was the famous Woodstock film that documented the big, huge concert, from 1969. So Woodstock came out in 1970. I know this next one's going to be on your list. And this was also one of the very first documentaries I really, really got into and wanted to watch again. And that was The Decline of Western Civilization Part 2, The Metal Years. Love that one. I mean, it's kind of funny looking back on it now, and a lot of those scenes were staged, like with Ozzy, roaming around his kitchen, and Chris Holmes swimming in the swimming pool. pretending like he's just
Well,
dumping vodka on himself.
So I know you're getting ready to run down your list, but I have to comment. I actually took that off my list.
Really?
I actually don't like that documentary.
Really?
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, because it's all about success being excess, and it just seems like it's. I like the Western Civilization Part 1. That kind of introduced me to a lot of the punk scene. But the
I have not
Western
seen that
Civilization
either.
Part 2, I think that like solidifies everything that was wrong about glam metal.
Yeah.
However, I'll add, I think the best part of that thing is the end with Megadeth. The end of it is killer. If it was more like the end of it instead of all that silly stuff, with Paul Stanley and everything, I actually took it off my list because I didn't feel like it should be up there just because it's the only documentary that covered metal in the 80s.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I love that. But yeah, you're right. That video just encompassed everything that was wrong with all those Sunset Strip bands. I mean, there was, like you said, there's bands I never even heard of, even to this day. Just, they were like local bands, playing on the Strip. And it was pretty much all the same. So I agree as far as it kind of summing up that whole scene, but I've always loved it. All right, here we go. So Woodstock, Decline of Western Civilization, Metal Years, and here's another one. I don't think I got to take this off, but because it is a concert film, and that was Stop Making Sense by the Talking Heads. I mean, there's a few shots in and out of them, backstage or coming to the show, but it's mostly a live concert, so I won't include that one. Don't Look Back, obviously, Bob Dylan documentary by D.A. Pennebaker, and this was made back in the 60s, 1967. I actually have the VHS tape of it still. Don't have a VCR, so I should probably replace that. But
did they remaster that? I mean, some of that footage is unbelievable, and I thought they remastered that where like it's so clean and high def. It's unbelievable to have that archive footage like that.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure they have. I'm pretty sure it's on Blu-ray to this day. But yeah, and I'm not a massive Bob Dylan fan. I do like Bob Dylan. I have a ton of his records, and I went through a Bob Dylan phase. But I mean, regardless of how you feel about Dylan, he's one of the greatest, if not the greatest, songwriter, lyric writer of the rock generation, in my opinion. And that I loved that documentary. So Don't Look Back. Have you seen The Kids Are All Right, which is the Who documentary? The Last Waltz, which, that was a live show, but I feel like that was definitely a documentary as well, because it, kind of went behind the scenes for the different bands, like the band, showed them like in the studio and stuff like that. So
I think that's like a top 5 for me.
Here's kind of an obscure one. Maybe you've seen this on the jazz lane here. So Thelonious Monk, Straight No Chaser. I thought it was an excellent documentary. It was done in the 80s, late 80s. I think it was 1988 to be exact. I'm not completely sure. So
I'll check it out. That's a new one for me.
Yeah, if you like
Thelonious Monk.
Yeah, me too. He's definitely an acquired sound, jazz sound, in my opinion, for the novice. If someone who's just getting into jazz, I would not recommend they start with Thelonious Monk. But fantastic documentary. Some Kind of Monster, of course, the Metallica documentary, kind of classic at this point. Anvil, the story of Anvil. I don't like Anvil. I think Anvil's terrible, and I don't believe all the narrative, with they were the first thrash band and they were the ones that inspired all this. It's like, no, I never heard that until the stupid documentary came out. And then all of a sudden people were like, oh, Anvil. I don't buy it. I think that's a load of crap and I don't think they're a very good band, to be honest with you. But the documentary was great. And it was actually crazy to see just a band, who was once a touring band, working their day jobs, right? They take vacation time so they could go on tour. So kind of funny.
I haven't watched that yet. I have to check that
You
out.
haven't seen it. Yeah. So let's see here. So have you seen The Wrecking Crew?
No.
So that's also a great documentary. It's 2008, and that goes behind the scenes for basically The Wrecking Crew, which was a band, but they were like a studio band. They were a collection of musicians that were present during
I know what you're talking about
the
now.
Birds.
Yep. My friend recommended that. I have not seen that yet.
Yep, fantastic. At one point, it was up on Netflix. I don't know if it still is, but it was excellent. So, and this, I'm not a super fan of these guys, but I respect them. You ever see A Long Strange Trip, which is of course about the Grateful Dead?
I started to watch. That thing should have been epic. It should have been epic. I was really excited to watch it. There's so much archive footage, but I tell you what, I don't think I watched all the episodes. It started out, it seemed like they were spending too much time on the psychedelia.
Yeah.
And acid trips and all that kind of stuff. It almost made me want to go back to I wanted to watch the, what's that Express, something Express, where they take the train through Canada and it's got Janis Joplin and
yeah.
Gary Garcia.
Yep.
That seems more fun. The Long Strange Trip, I think, is for the diehard Dead fan. I like the first couple of Dead albums, and I had a little Dead phase, but I don't. I lost interest in that documentary. I'm sorry. I apologize if that thing's out there. I lost interest and didn't finish it.
Yeah. Again, I agree. It's for the diehard, mostly for the diehard Dead fan, and I think that's why I liked it, because it was super detailed. At least I thought it was. A lot of stuff I didn't know. Excuse me. So, all right, let's keep going. Here's another one that is, yes, it's a live concert film, but it's like Woodstock. And this was actually the festival that basically gave birth to Woodstock, and that would be the Monterey Pop Festival in 1967.
Yeah.
And I found that at used record store, used CDs and tapes down in Denver, I think it's called. But they had a Blu-ray copy, the Blu-ray box there. It was like $20. It was like $19.99, $20. So I picked it up. But yeah, fantastic. I think the live performances in that blow away the live performances on Woodstock. And just kind of seeing, that was really America's introduction to Jimi Hendrix, The Who, and Janis Joplin, right? And even Otis Redding. No one knew who Otis Redding was, which is funny because everyone was there to see rock and roll or rock. So highly recommend. I love that documentary. Here's another one you may or may not be familiar with. Love this one as well. I'm sure you've heard of the band Wilco. They came out with a documentary in 2002, I Am Trying to Break Your Heart, and it came out right around the same time. I think it was right after Yankee Hotel Foxtrot came out. Fantastic documentary. It's actually kind of funny. A couple of the guys in Wilco are a little bit prima donna-ish. So, but it's odd to think that for a indie band, but highly recommended. Let's see. Of course, the Death documentary, Death by Metal. We already mentioned that. Here's a newer one. This one came out in 2015. This would be Kurt Cobain's montage of Heck. I don't know if you've seen that, but definitely like that one.
I did watch it. Yeah, I've seen that one.
Okay, here's another one kind of staying in the grunge era. This is a documentary actually about the Seattle scene. Came out in 1996 called Hype. Hype, Hype. Yeah, check it out. It's awesome. It goes through basically the history of Seattle and that music scene. And then, of course, it takes it all the way up to the present, which was 1996 back then. And they re-released it, I don't know, 6 months ago, and they put some newer interviews and stuff in there, kind of going back, like, here's where we are now. But it was great. And they didn't just cover like the big bands, they covered all the small, obscure bands too, or even the bands that were, not huge, like the Screaming Trees or Tad or any of those bands. So highly recommended if you ever come across that. And then speaking of Tad, I actually just watched this documentary the other day. And I just wrote Tad, so hang on. I'm going to look up the name of this documentary. So, and I watched this on YouTube, that music pop culture channel, Noisy, where they do a lot of music stuff, metal stuff. They found and re-released the documentary on the band Tad called Busted Circuits and Ringing Ears. Fantastic documentary if you're interested in Tad. Yeah. And it's on YouTube. I watched it like 3 nights ago or last week. It was like Wednesday. Watched it. Fantastic. Highly recommended. Okay. Few more here. I don't consider that one a documentary anymore. There's another music one, so I won't even mention it. Dig. I don't know if you ever saw the documentary Dig from 2004. And that was basically a documentary about the Dandy Warhols and the Bryan Jonestown Massacre. Most people probably don't know those bands. They had some mild success in the late 90s and early to mid 2000s. Think kind of the Strokes, Interpol, bands like that. That's kind of what these bands that I just mentioned are about. But it's awesome. It's actually a super entertaining documentary. And then this is the last one I have down here, and this one, it came out in 2010. That was Rush, the Rush documentary, Rush Beyond the Lighted Stage, obviously done by Sam Dunn of Banger Films. So, and I know I've missed probably 100 of these. 100, there's so many good ones, but those were, just kind of the ones that came to mind when I was making notes a couple days ago. So.
You have a fantastic list. This is exactly why we wanted to do this, was because now I've got 4 or 5 new ones to go watch. So you have to email me your list that you have so I can get watching and digging into that. That's really cool.
Oh, you know what? I forgot one more, and I will. The 2008 documentary that featured Jack White, The Edge, and Jimmy Page, It Might Get Loud, where they kind of come together and talk about their bands. Yeah, love that documentary. So big fan of it. So that's my list. Again, it wasn't in any order. It was just, documentaries that I've seen throughout the years that I would want to go and watch again or have watched many, many, many times.
Nice. Yeah. Thanks for sharing, John. I'll send you my list as well, so we can put it in a drop down and we could actually reference it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. But you're talking about It Might Get Loud. There's so many awesome moments in that documentary, and I had some people challenge, why Jack White, why The Edge, and I didn't. I was all in on that documentary when it came out. That was like the best thing going in a long time, and the little moments that they did, where they had that moment where they did the band, they did the Wait.
Yeah, at the end.
Just sing along. And Jack White had the lyrics wrong. He thought it was Take a Load Off Annie, and it's Take a Load Off Annie. But
right. That's funny.
And then when they all get together and they start doing the riff, In My Time of Dying,
I know. That one. And then when Jimmy Page breaks into A Whole Lot of Love, and you see both Edge and Jack like stop and walk up there, what's going through their minds is like, oh, the master playing his actual riff. It was pretty funny. You can see the smirk on Jack White's face when he starts playing it. Jack White, trying to be Mr. Too Cool for School rock star, just totally became a fanboy in that scene.
That's right. He did, didn't he? Jimmy Page, when he's, I don't know, whenever I watch the scene with Paige in his like one of his rooms, you can see it's like probably one of the places he lives pretty often because he has
With those records.
Yeah, he has all of his records.
Yeah.
I'm trying to look behind him, and I spot I recognize some of the box sets. But of course, when he drops the needle on Link Ray, everybody likes that moment where he's just getting into Link Ray. He's describing how the distortion gets heavier and heavier. That was just an awesome moment in that documentary.
Right, him playing air guitar to Link Ray, going like this. It's pretty awesome.
But okay, let me run through my list.
Yeah, go through your list.
So Tom Dowd and the Language of Music came out in 2003.
Oh, I forgot about that one. Yes, excellent.
Dowd passed away in 2002, but just this documentary probably would be number one on my list because it opened my eyes not only to the audio engineer, because I saw it closer to not too long after it came out. And you cannot track this DVD down. If you go on eBay right now, it's like $100, $150.
Really? I did not know that.
But what I did was I got on Netflix and I subscribed to the DVD, and you can get it for free through, or for a couple of bucks for that through Netflix. I tried to rip it, and I could not get my computer to rip the stupid thing. So, but oh well, at least I stayed legal, watched it, and I'll watch it again. But I never, it opened my eyes to so much. His influence on Cream, you know, when they did Sunshine of Your Love, he actually influenced and encouraged Baker to like play that more of an American Indian kind of drum beat. That was just like incredible. His influence with on the Allman Brothers and working with Dwayne and him being a connection between getting Eric Clapton and Dwayne Allman together. And there's a scene in there where he's answering the phone and it's like, and he's trying to describe who he's in the studio with, and Eric's like, oh, isn't that, you know, Dwayne? And just how much they loved each other. But like John Coltrane, Ornette Coleman, Otis Redding, Clapton, and I mean, it just, and he never got any, they just paid his salary. You know, he just worked for, what was it, Atlantic? I don't want to get that wrong.
Yeah, it was Atlantic.
He just got his salary. But he was a nuclear engineer. He was a nuclear engineer working on the atomic bomb. And then he was so advanced he had to drop out of college because the stuff they were learning was 5 years old. But anyway, I'll go along with the list. But yeah, that was just incredible. It Might Get Loud, Muscle Shoals, 2013.
I still haven't seen that one yet.
I think you need to like clear your schedule and try and knock that out next weekend. I highly recommend that. It does start in with like it's Rick Hall's story, and since he just passed away last year, I think it's important to watch. But just the whole thing with Leonard Skinner and Hall, Fame Studios and Muscle Shoals.
So does it talk about all the artists that recorded at Fame Studios?
It does. It briefly touches on everybody, even the backup band. I think we just lost the drummer from one of the backup band, kind of like you said, the Wrecking Crew, or kind of like the Motown band. The backing group of guys that played at Muscle Shoals are on multiple albums. I think the drummer just passed away. But Muscle Shoals is incredible. It has a soundtrack to LP set that goes with it. It's great. Sonic Highways. Sonic Highways, whether you like the Foo Fighters.
The Foo Fighters one.
Or you hate the Foo Fighters, or you only know a couple tracks, I think it's worth it. They go Chicago, D.C., Nashville, Austin, L.A., and New Orleans. So you get they go into Rancho de la Luna, where Fu Manchu recorded, Kyle's recorded, Kurt Vile, Queens of the Stone Age. They go into New Orleans, and now that Dr. John passed away, you've got this great archival interviews with Dr. John. Trombone Shorty, I think, is in there too. Trombone Shorty's really awesome. In Seattle, Robert Lang Studios. Isn't that the studios where no, I'm getting it mixed up with another one, but it's a famous Seattle studio. It's not the one that's down in the ground.
You're thinking of Heart, the Heart studio that doesn't exist anymore. It's where Heart record Bad Animals. Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, all those bands recorded at Bad Animals.
Okay. Then what was it? Chicago, DC. He gets into punk, and then of course it is a little bit about Grohl on one of the episodes with the DC in Seattle. But you know, of course you have Rick Rubin's in it. Oh crap, what am I? Oh, Rocky Erickson. So there's some great archival footage now that Rocky's passed away, where Dave actually interviews Rocky, and Rocky's still, he's still battling, some mental illness, but he made it. That's another documentary on him. On it. I forgot to put the Rocky Erickson documentary on my list. Have you seen that?
I have not seen that. I like Rocky Erickson. I've always liked the 13th floor elevators, but I have not seen that.
It's excruciating to watch because you see Rocky started out and all the things that he went through, and his mom really held him back by not getting him proper medication. And so he from my perspective, he squandered a lot of years where people were trying to reach out to him and he wouldn't. He just would sit at the TV playing Static and eating Fruit Loops and not want to talk to anybody. It's really bad. And finally his brother had been trying to go to bat for him and try to get custody of him for many years, finally won, got custody of him, got his chemical imbalance in his head sorted out, and Rocky started to be a human again.
Right.
He wasn't all the way there, but he was able to make a comeback and do a few shows, and then like this interview with Dave Grohl. And I love how Dave set it up because I like documentaries. I'm a video guy. I really like the way that Dave shot it because if you notice when you watch the scene, he has Rocky sitting. It's an isolated area, not a lot of noise, not a lot of things going on. Rocky's sitting a level up, and Dave is sitting a row in front and lower.
That's right.
I thought that was a really awesome dynamic. So that way, it was an important dynamic because of who Dave is and who Rocky was. And Dave was just, hey, I'm just a regular guy talking to you about music.
Right. But I forgot about that scene. Yeah, agree. I loved that series. Excellent choice.
Sorry, I get a little passionate there.
No worries. I did the same.
Sound City. I thought Sound City 2017 had Petty, Lars, Rick Rubin, Vinny Apathy was in it. Charles Bradley, Soul of America. Turned me on to Charles. I was just hearing some hints about Charles Bradley in the vinyl community and caught this documentary. It's just fantastic. Charles Bradley didn't even get discovered until he was in his 60s. It's awesome, amazing voice full of soul. And he's on the Daptone label. It's incredible albums, and it's an incredible documentary. And I'd also recommend Sharon Jones as well. Both of them have passed away. Rush Beyond the Lighted Stage. All right, the Defiant Ones, 2017. Did you catch that one?
That was the one about Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine. Yeah, I did. I loved that.
Jimmy Iovine, Dr. Dre. It started out so awesome. It's so rooted in the history, but then the business decisions that had to be made, I think it's a really good. I think it was a great documentary up until the end, and then it just became a commercial for Beats.
Yeah.
Beats headphones, which I think are garbage. If you have a pair of Beats, I apologize, but when I went and listened to them, the sound wasn't there. I like my Sony. Like my Sony.
If you have a pair of Beats and you're watching this, go ahead and throw those in the trash because they are trash. Just
But I mean, hey, they made an empire on it. So
you're right.
The Defiant Ones are great. It's great to go back into the history of Dr. Dre. A little bit of Eazy-E and Ice Cube was in there too. All right, here's one. I know you're gonna wince that you forgot it. Before there was punk, there was a band called Death.
Oh.
Have you seen that?
I have. I completely forgot about it.
And that's one where you have the shaky video camera.
Yeah.
But even though the camera work is terrible, the storytelling and the characters are
so great. Awesome. That's what makes that.
Shaky camera.
I'd never even heard of Death, honestly, until that documentary came out.
Me neither.
I only knew the death metal band Death. I had no idea.
I went to Chicago, and when I did the interview for Permanent Records, the guy that was there, his buddy who works at Permanent Records, he's the one that purchased the Death 45 on eBay for like $800, and
really?
actually was a part of getting the documentary kind of going.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was really cool. So that guy wasn't in the shop that day, or I would have talked to him, but he was interviewed as part of the documentary. Metal Evolution, you already touched on that. Sam Dunn with interviews with Martin Popoff. Searching for Sugar Man, I thought was really good. Keith Richards, Under the Influence.
Yep, that was really good.
That's just awesome, where he basically tips his hat to, you think, oh, Keith Richards Under the Influence, it's going to be a lot about drugs and stuff. No, that's all the influence. That's all the blues influence that influenced Keith to be the great guitarist that he is.
Right.
History of the Eagles. I thought Eagles take a lot of crap on the internet these days. I couldn't
get through it. I kept falling asleep. When that documentary was available on Netflix, this was years ago now. What, 4 or 5 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, I had been working in Utah like straight. So I was in Utah for work for like 3 straight weeks, and every night, no joke, I would get back to the hotel room, get in bed, pull up my iPad, and start watching it, and then I would fall asleep. I literally could not get through it.
I don't listen to the Eagles a lot now, but I had my Eagles phase and kind of doing my classic rock stuff in the mid to late 90s. And I thought it was a good documentary. So just a few more here. PJ20, the Pearl Jam.
Oh, you're killing me. I forgot that one. Yes.
I thought that was really good.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites, actually.
Really entertaining. And then I had to watch the Cubs one, too. They had their live footage in the Cubs. They almost turned that into a little documentary.
Oh, yeah, at Wrigley Field. Yeah, that's right.
I'm a Cleveland Indians fan, being from Ohio, so that one I had to kind of, take with a spoon of sugar because it was tough medicine. But that was really cool about the owner of the bar that he would go to all the time. But
right.
Just a couple more. An American Epic, the Jack White produced. It was on PBS.
I had not seen that.
It's 2 or 3 parts. Hugely, it's all about American music and how it's hugely influential music recording in the heartland. Robert Redford does some of the narrating in it. There's a soundtrack that goes with it, so you can go purchase the records that go along with it. So Jack White did. Okay, let me back up a little bit. I won't get into it too much, but they were able to go and reconstruct a lathe cutting machine, a recording lathe cutting machine that ran on its own power. It runs on a weight. So they put this whole thing together, and the weight, so you have like exactly 2 minutes and 50 seconds to record before the weight gets to the bottom.
Right.
The weight drives all the gears and turns everything, and the lathe and the microphone in the next room records. And so they took these things and they recorded American music in the 20s and 30s. So it's going to be a lot of that early folk rock and country, but it's just really cool, and lots of blues. So if you go on Third Man Records, you can buy a blues compilation that has just a compilation, or you can buy the separate LPs that has every single track from it. And then Jack White recorded some tracks with different various guests in the room. Really cool documentary.
What's it called again? American Epic?
Epic. And it should be free. It should be on PBS. It should be available out there.
Okay, cool.
Beware of Mr. Baker.
That's the Ginger Baker one.
It starts out with him punching the guy in the nose with his cane. And our thoughts and prayers are with Ginger Baker and his family, as I know he's pretty ill right now. Illness. Inside Metal Thrash, Rise of Thrash Metal Part 1 and 2, I thought it was okay. Lemmy, 2010.
Oh, yeah. My wife actually liked that one. My wife, for whatever reason, she's not really a big metal fan, but she likes Black Sabbath and she likes Lemmy. She loves Motorhead. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, Lemmy just has that charm, and no apologies. Sitting there in the room with the sun, no apologies. And Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers running down the street.
Yeah.
That's one of those ones that go back and forth with the concert.
Fantastic. That is one of the most comprehensive documentaries, in my opinion, about one particular artist or band that I've ever seen. Amazing. The only criticism I have of that is how, and I know why they did, but how they kind of brushed over 1996's She's the One, the soundtrack. I love that album. It's great Heartbreakers songs on that album, but I guess Tom hated it. And he kind of always that takes him back to that time. He always references that time when he was at his lowest. He had divorced.
I remember that from his book.
I think there was a fire. At one point, he was a heroin addict. I mean, there was a lot of crazy stuff during that period. So he's never liked that record. But I wish they would have talked a little more about it because I've always loved it. Movie's okay, but the soundtrack is fantastic. But yeah, what great documentary. If you haven't seen that, even if you're not a Heartbreakers fan, you got to see it. It's long, but it's totally worth it.
Yeah, and if you want the live footage, I think you can just get the concert with just the live footage from the concert.
Yeah, you can. You can do either or. I think the Blu-ray if you get the Blu-ray edition, it has both.
And then John, remind me, so tagging on to Tom Petty, if there's Tom Petty fans watching, if not, skip ahead 60 seconds. So with Tom Petty, I got the satellite radio going, and I stumble across this fantastic channel that sounds like Tom Petty is the DJ. And I'm like, who is this guy? Is this some kind of tribute to Tom Petty? And I'm like, no, Tom Petty has a very distinct voice. Tell me about the channel and how it came about.
Yeah, so just to kind of segue into Tom Petty, just coming from that. So Buried Treasure is obviously a radio show that's been on Sirius XM for years, probably almost 10 years, not quite. And it was basically a radio show that Tom Petty himself put together. He curated all of the music, and he played music, spun records from his personal collection, and he did it out of his home. But if you listen to the episodes, he pretends like he's recording this radio show in a place called something airport
recording, but he's got a little
airport recorders or Kin's airport recorders, and he pretends like he's near the LAX, the airport, recording this thing, and he puts these like little mini skits where he has little sound effects of his Aunt Bertha calling in, and it's if you haven't heard it, if you have a subscription, look up Buried Treasure, and you can go back and listen to all those episodes, and they still air it. So yeah, it sounds like I thought Tom Petty was dead.
I mean, just him opening up like that, and for him to have all that, or to be able to leave that behind. Can you imagine that from if other artists had done that? I mean, what a person! And then he's always playing music from like the Byrds and
yeah, he plays his collection. I've only heard a handful of Heartbreakers songs on that radio show. He plays everything else,
you're gonna get the stuff that you like, that stuff that he grew up listening to, and the stuff that influenced him, and stuff that he liked through the '80s. You're not gonna hear. It's not like Tom Petty radio. So yeah, check that out.
Yep.
All right, just a couple more, Don. MC5, A True Testimonial, 2002. The Last Waltz.
What was that one you said before The Last Waltz?
MC5, A True Testimonial on MC5, Detroit.
I've not seen that. Yeah, I love the MC5. I have not seen that. I'll check it out.
It's pretty good. The Last Waltz, 1978. Eric Clapton, My Life in 12 Bars.
Yep, that was a good one.
And that's not about Clapton going to 12 different bars.
Although that would be interesting.
I'm a dad, so dad joke. But what is now I don't play music, so tell me about 12-bar blues. Is that what that is? Typically, a blues song was written in 12 measures of music, or 12 bars.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's the 12-bar blues. The 1-4-5 blues chord progression that pretty much every rock song is based off of, whether they know it or not. That's really almost ground zero for the birth of rock and roll, and based around those three chords, whatever key you're in, and the 12-bar blues. Yeah.
I thought it was a really good documentary. They really unpack and get into a lot of the details. They hit on, of course, all the big stuff, but it felt like it was really great. And then it feels like they compressed his later years to now, like in the last 5 minutes, if even that, the last 2 minutes. So I felt like they had gone through, I don't know, it was really good, but I feel like they really shortchanged the, kind of like the future. What's in the future for Eric Clapton, and tying together like his 70th, when he turned 70, did the Royal Albert Hall concert. And I don't remember how much they got into that or not. It just seemed like they really compressed the end of his life. Clapton's still alive, sorry. But I just felt like the later years, they could have unpacked a little bit more, because now he's sober, he's married, he's got a kid, he's married again, and has, he has a life. He actually has a house up here in near Dublin, Ohio.
Does he really? That's crazy.
He's got a house in Ohio. His wife is from Ohio.
Oh, okay.
So I keep hoping to bump into him.
Who would have thunk? Who would have thunk it?
They're probably in the UK most of the time. So the Allman Brothers, there was a documentary, and this one's kind of on the edge for me because it's called After the Crash. It came out in 2016. It's one of those Netflix ones that it's not great, it's not bad, it's like kind of good. And then I just got one more. I Called Him Morgan. Are you familiar with that one?
No. Is that the Lee Morgan documentary?
So it's a Lee Morgan documentary, but it's based around this real eerie cassette recording that I forget who recorded it now. Somebody that ended up working with Helen Morgan, I think at the same public school that she worked at, ended up finding out that she was the Helen Morgan that was is the widow to Lee Morgan, but also she's the one
the Sidewinder
murdered her.
Really?
So,
wow.
Yeah. So
I did not know
he's
that.
got this cassette recording. Yeah. He went to her in her apartment and talked to her, but the cassette recording is really, really bad, dude. I mean, it's like the worst cassette recording ever, but it's her voice. He's asking her questions. You kind of get her side of the story many years later looking back. And then they tie in a lot of the stuff with Lee Morgan into it. So that's my list. Is it?
Excellent list. Yeah, there was a ton on there that I hadn't seen. Yeah, if you would send that out to me, and then I'll of course share my list with you. And then I'm gonna be on the hunt this week trying to find some of these. Hopefully they're online, or I can find them, used or something, maybe a DVD or a Blu-ray. I've always liked to own documentaries. Same thing with records, right? Yeah, it's cool to have the download because you can watch it instantly, but I don't know, to have the actual disc itself, right? Put it on the shelf, pull it out, stick it in the player. I've always loved owning documentaries.
You're breaking up a little bit there, but I think you said pretty much you like watching documentaries, but it's awesome if you have the Blu-ray or DVD.
Yeah, I love owning them.
My favorite ones, my best ones I've got on DVD, and an honorable mention I guess might be Pink Floyd, Pompeii. But like to your point, I don't consider that a documentary because it's like this much music and this much. There's a couple interviews thrown in as they're recording Dark Side of the Moon. But
which one is that one? Live at Pompeii. Yeah. Okay. Been a long time since I've seen
There's a couple. That. But it's some of that stuff is pre-Dark Side. So you see, Richard Wright sitting at the piano hashing out some of the Dark Side of the Moon stuff. But I feel like it's more of a music theatrical thing than a documentary.
Right. Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch that again. Yeah, I saw that a long time ago. There's not really a good Pink Floyd documentary that kind of touches on the whole career. There's there's one called The Story of Wish You Were Here about the making of it, right? Of that album
or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. That one was okay. But I've always felt like there should have been a more comprehensive, documentary on that band, considering how huge they were and are, and super influential as well.
No, you're right. I think, there's probably not one because Gilmore and Rogers get together on it, but absolutely, they've got the money, they've got the budget, they can put together a really nice documentary, and the only thing that's out there are a lot of the hack stuff. If I could throw together a Pink Floyd documentary and do better than some of the hack stuff that's out there.
Right.
Like, imagine that. Maybe they'll follow up with the doc because they've released, their box set of all their music for the early years, and then now they're releasing here in the next month. They're releasing the later years.
Yep.
Some incredible unheard music and things like that. But why not a documentary? I mean, Dave's still.
Who would have thought?
He's still active. Just auctioned off all of his guitars.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
Record-breaking millions.
And I think he kept one guitar, right, from that batch that he auctioned off. I think he only kept one.
I don't remember reading that from the article because for me, it's the one that he sold is the one to have, right? The black one.
Oh yeah, the black Strat, man, that he used for Dark Side. Yeah, that's crazy that he would actually part with that. So do you want to? We can wrap this up, and then we can just preview the coming weeks.
Yeah, let's talk about what we're going to be doing next week, or maybe in the next couple of weeks, and sign off.
Okay, cool. So, well, yeah, thanks, Corey, for kind of sharing this idea with me. I thought it was a fantastic idea. Obviously, super passionate about music documentaries, and I know a lot of people are. So, any of you who watch this and you're into music documentaries, leave some comments for us, just kind of letting us know kind of what your favorite documentaries are. And who knows, maybe you have some documentaries that we've not heard of, right, that you can recommend that we watch. So excited to see what everybody is gonna leave in the comments as far as their favorite. So okay, well, Corey, I'll let you announce the upcoming episodes, plural episodes. We actually have a plan.
Yeah, we got a plan, and it helped us get together a lot faster than before.
Yep.
So yeah, this will be what we're gonna do is this is called Decades of Decadence, kind of a play on the Motley Crue compilation album that came out in the '90s.
Yeah.
But Decade of Decadence, just taking the decades one by one and talking about our top 25 albums. Top 25 albums from each decade. And what I mean is we're going to start off in 1980 and go to 1989. That would be 10 years. That'll be our first. And I think we're going to leave some room there for maybe an extra 5. We'll do a 30.
Yeah, like an honorable mention 5 or something like that. There's just too many.
So many in my collection, your collection that we want to talk about. And then that'll be the next episode. Looking forward to doing that. And then we're going to do 90 to 80 or. Yeah, so then we would go 90 to 98 or 99, and then so forth. So then we would do 2000, and then we'd hit 2010 to 2019.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So
like the next 4, I'll take care of the next 4 episodes.
80s,
90s, 2000, 2010.
This is going to be so difficult. I mean, I love putting together top 25 lists because there are albums for me in each decade that are untouchable, that will always be, in that top 10 or top 5. But the hardest part is all the other albums, right? I mean, which albums do you leave out? Which ones do you put on your list? So yeah, I'm really excited to get into this. And I know the vinyl community, that they're passionate about music lists too. I think I watch a VC video just about every day of a different channel giving us their top, best albums from 1985 or best albums of, 1992 or, whatever it is. So I know we'll get a ton of feedback on that one. So.
Absolutely. And my approach is going to be, I'm probably going to put my 1980 hat on, my 1986, 87 hat on. It's going to heavily influence my choices.
Yeah.
Because we could probably get into that in the next episode. I'm not going to base everything on 2019 looking back and what's the coolest, what's the most, what's held up, what's lasted the longest. I'm just going to jump right in and talk about the stuff that I had on tapes and CDs.
Yeah, pick yours.
Stuff that I love,
I completely agree. That's the great way to do it is, don't go back and say, okay, well, Rolling Stone magazine or this magazine or that magazine said that these are the top 25 albums. So I guess that's what it is. No, your opinion, what really had an impact on you, right? That's the way to do it. What music this is our individual top 25s, not the rest of the, world.
You know what? I wasn't going to number them 25 either. Were you going to do that? I was just going to give you 25 albums. I wasn't going to say, hey, this is number 1.
No.
I can't do that.
Yep, I can't do that. I could probably do my top 5, but that's about it. So yeah, I'm going to do mine in no particular order. I'll probably put them chronologically, starting in 1980, and then I'll mention an album, when it came out, right? So I'll list all the 80s albums and then 81, if there's any, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
So, all right, man. Well, thanks for getting into this again. It felt good to get right back into it, right? Well, I felt like we had some momentum.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's just keep it going. And you want to sign off with our virtual fist bump?
Oh, yeah. Boom. Rock on.